Classes in session. Hitting the Books is back. Season 4 of college football hitting the books. Ian Cameron, Connor Mack, the dynamic duo is back. The two guys you know very well with this show for the last few years. The only difference being we are at a new home now. Yes, right here. It is our very own, brand new, dedicated YouTube channel for the college football hitting the books show. So the first thing we want to tell you right off the hop, subscribe to the channel right away. Let's get that subscriber count going. This is our brand new home. This is the place where you will be able to watch this show live every single Monday, same time as it's been, same day, same time as it's been. Over the last few years, Mondays at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And this is the spot to be for your first look, your early week look at the college football card every single week during the college football season. And yes, other than us being at a new YouTube channel dedicated to the show, nothing else really changes. It's the same two schmucks, I guess you could say, bringing you the show. And it's the same format, the format that I think most of you know and love. And it's the format that I think explains why this show got so popular over the last few years. We get on the show Mondays early in the week where the lines have just been released for the week ahead. Everything is fresh and the board is ready to be attacked, if you will. And just like we've done in the past, we'll cover every single weeknight standalone game throughout the college football season. So if it's a Tuesday game, a Wednesday game, a Thursday game, or a Friday game, every single weeknight game will be one of the games that will be included for preview and analysis each and every show here on Hitting the Books. And then, of course, we will talk about a large part of the Saturday games as well. But again, with that, we will make sure we focus more on the marquee games, some of the better group of 5 teams in action. Those are going to be the games we really hone in on and focus on with the Saturday selection of games that we talk about each and every week. But yeah, the format remains the same. And we'll also have individual game preview clips as well posted throughout the season, likely a day later with that, just like we did. And those will be on the Hitting the Books YouTube channel as well. So we're excited to be here. Again, the show you know and love is back with me and Connor Mack. Well, that's a nice little rhyme there. I didn't intend for that. And the same format, we'll get all the weeknight games and a large part of the Saturday games previewed from a betting perspective right here on Hitting the Books. C-Mac, it is good to be back, and it's good to be doing this show once again for a 4th consecutive season.
Yeah, it is. I'm just happy about? We're here, and college football is back. Nothing makes me more happier. As much as I grew up in baseball, it's probably my first love. As a kid, there's nothing like football. It's like my life is not the same. But then, through the summer, it's just like I'm dying to get to college football. And I love doing the show. I think we do a pretty good job. We break down these games. Like week 0 here, a little different. These lines have been out for a long time. From week to week, we're going to try to catch some of these lines, especially totals that'll jump on early in the week. That's why we love doing the show. But these have actually sat for a while and have already moved. But just 1 week, just a few games. We'll hit some totals at the end. I know you have a good amount. I have a few here as well. And I'm just pumped. I'm ready to roll, brother.
Yeah, you know what, Connor Mack? I was going to get to the Saturday games first. I think we'll go in reverse. I think we'll start with season win totals and futures. We'll do some of that first. Just because, look, we really didn't do a formal season preview show because, honestly, there were a lot of things hanging in the balance as far as, where the show was going to be this year. That only got figured out really the last few days. So we really didn't get a chance to dive into a legit preview show. So that's why we'll start now with and we're not going to obviously go through every conference and every team. We'd be here forever. We're just going to handpick a few season win totals and futures that we're both liking. C-Mac, I'll start with you on this one. Power 5 or Power 4. I got to stop saying Power 5. Power 4.
Power 4.
Of course, now with the super conferences and these mega conferences, the Big 10 is now the Big 18. Just as one example, the Big 18 they should call it. It's crazy, but
it's just so many, and that year then they don't regularly get to play each other year in. It's just I don't know. It's goofy. money has taken over, and yeah, Power Four. Power
Yeah,
Four.
it's absolutely insane, what we're talking about these conferences with that many teams. But yeah, greed, money, television. I mean, it's ruling the world right now as far as college football. And yeah, traditionalists are burying their head in the sand because I'm sure they can't stomach this. The traditionalists that love, regionalized rivalries, people being in a conference based on where they're located. Those days are gone now. It's these super conferences, and of course, you've got these huge, gigantic Big 12, Big 10, ACC, SEC conferences now, the Power Four. The Group of Five is still in existence. Of course, a lot of shifting there as well. There are some new teams in FBS this year. But the one thing I do like, I mean, I'm still getting used to, I'm not sure I'm crazy about how everything's realigned to this extent. But the one thing I am excited about, CMAC, is a 12-team college football playoff. Even after just a few years of the 4-team playoff. We had that year last year where it was just so controversial how Florida State just got left in the cold. And it just makes you think, boy, if only they could have had the 12-team playoff last year, we wouldn't have had to deal with any of that shit and any of that controversy. And Florida State wouldn't have been butthurt and upset and angry and pissed off about being left out, because if this was a 12-team format last year, they wouldn't have been left out. But it is what it is. It's now 12 teams this year. And obviously it's going to it's weird because it's going to take away, Connor, from every single game for a Power 5 team looking to make the Power 4 team looking to make the playoff. Not every game is going to be life or death now. There's going to be margin for error. You can lose maybe 3 games, especially if you're in the SEC or the Big 10, and still make the playoff. That wasn't the case, obviously, prior to this year. So it kind of takes away from that, wow, it's such a huge game, right? If they lose, they might not even make the playoff. Those days are kind of over now with the new format. But what it does do is it opens the door for more teams to have a chance to get in the playoff. And it opens the door even for, a Group of 5 team to say, hey, we're good enough. We think we can compete enough with a Power 4 team to make the playoff. And look, do I think they're going to beat them? Likely not, but at least they're going to get a chance to now. And that's the good thing about the new format.
At least you get to see David versus Goliath, and all these teams that we've been waiting. This has been in, how many years now they put this in? We're going to have this 12-man team, like, I don't know, 4 or 5. I mean, it's been a while since we've all been waiting. For the whole debacle last year. That's out of the way, but multiple losses in, a conference like the SEC. And now that it's a Power 4, we'll get into schedules are just different. And I had to look at it, but Ben, I'm not completely done with mine all the way, but looking at the schedules with some of these teams, like when you look at Oklahoma, it's like 7.5. It's like, oh, they're going to win, but, different schedule, which I think they could still get to 8 wins. But usually a team that seemed like you could pencil in 9 or 10 for sure, even with the few losses that they would have the last 5 or 10 years. So a little bit different now with the schedules and the Power 4, the whole everyone filling in everywhere. Just look that out, check everything out, the schedules with all this with the win totals.
Yeah, there's no question. Schedule analysis has to be at the forefront of any season win totals, futures betting you're going to do, because really there's some teams that have, especially when you talk Power 4, there's some teams that, for instance, in the ACC, I know there's teams that have to play SMU, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, all of these teams projected to be among the elites in the conference. And yet there's some teams that avoid most, if not all, those teams on their schedule. So that is just one example of how important it is to look at the schedule. Which teams have Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State and Oregon, in the Big 10, and which teams don't. That's a big part of what you got to look at when you're trying to decide on season win totals and futures. There's always going to be the SEC. Do you avoid Georgia? Do you avoid Alabama? Do you avoid LSU? Do you avoid some of the top teams there in that conference, or do you have to play one or more of them or all of them? So all of that has to be something you look at, and schedule analysis is imperative as far as the process you have to go through to determine what you're going to bet as far as season win totals and futures are concerned. So speaking of that, college football season win totals and futures, CMAC, we'll start with you on this one. What are some first win totals? What are some win totals that you like?
Yeah, let's get to it. That's really all that I do, unless I like something. Sometimes I'll have one bet. And college football, I have to say, that man is a little bit more than any other sport. Like I'll bet a team to win the pennant, stuff like that in baseball, one or two. But I guess football, if I like something, I'll get into. And I've only got into the total, so I can't go further than that with you. But I might have a bet or two, and I'll let everyone know before we start next week, which really is week 1 in it. Well, let's hear. I got some already down. Let's right off the bat here. Our classic winner year in and year out, and I'll dare him to win 8 games again. Matt Rule's there. Maybe he can turn it around. Nebraska. Under 7.5 wins. It's plus 105, and they're giving you plus money. I'll dare them to win 8 games. Now, they have a schedule. Northern Iowa, they have a few winnable games. UTEP maybe, but the schedule gets difficult down the stretch. I don't see them winning 8 games. So Nebraska under 7.5. This one I had to go with. There's a little bit juice to this. You could go with the 5, but it's the push. But even with their schedule and their defense, they got a whole turnover here. Is Florida. Mertz is back in at quarterback. I don't love him, but I think Florida. I know the schedule is a little tough. I think they can get to 5 wins. Maybe not more than that, 5 or 6, but I think they can get over the 4.5. Now that's juice. Some places minus 140, but Florida over 4.5. UNLV. I love what UNLV is doing here, but under 7.5. I think they're a really good football team. That the foundation is great here in town. Everything I love. Their schedule is pretty difficult. I don't know if they can get to 8 wins, and I don't think they do. I think 7 wins is there. So under 7.5. A team we're going to get to here in a second, just because I love the schedule. Preston Stone. I still don't love the defense, but they bring back a ton. SMU over 8.5. Schedules plus 125. Maybe not a crazy one here, but I think they win 9 games again. I think they can get the job done. They bring back a ton on defense. We're going to get to that game in a minute. And I don't know how really great they are, but I think they're good enough to get 9 wins. And it's a great plus money price in this one. And I got one more. I'm going to have a couple more of these. But, I always have these low win totals I love to take over the years. Like Stanford, a couple of last year I had 2 or 3. This one's one I'm going to take. They won 3 games last year, and they were awful. This team was horrible. Temple, over 2.5 because of the schedule. They're playing Navy, Charlotte, FAU. I think they can get 3 wins again. This could be a nail biter. Over 2.5 wins for Temple, plus 125. It might not be one that it could come down to the wire, but with their schedule, I think they get 3 wins again. So give me Temple over 2.5 there at plus 125. That was it for me.
All right, good stuff. I'm on board with a lot of what you said. I'm actually against you on that last one. I actually think Temple could top out at 2.
Really?
I think they're that
I
bad.
dug into that deep, though. I actually think they could get a 3rd win. I like they were one of the worst football teams that got 3 wins last year. I love the price with it, so I went with it. I went over 2.5. That'll be a good one at the end of the year. We will see.
That is, look, you're not asking a lot, but the way I see it is, I think they're going to be a dog in just damn near every game, except maybe one. So they're going to have to pull an upset or 2, if they're going to go over that 2.5 win total. And again, EJ Warner's not there anymore now, breaking in a new quarterback, a horrendous defense. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm not a big fan of the coach. So we'll see. I get it. 2.5, you almost can go over 2.5 wins. It's funny. There's another team that's at a 2.5 win total that I like to go over, and that's Vanderbilt, believe it or not, in the SEC.
Are there still 2.5s? I thought there were a lot of
lay a price. It was minus 180 when I said it's worth it. I'd rather lay the 2.5, lay that price with the 2.5 than let it than take a shot with a 3.5, because 4 might be asking a lot, but 3 for them, I think they can get there. And I think so too. Pavia, great quarterback from New Mexico State. I think an improved team last year. They showed some glimpses. I'm not, totally. I still believe in Clark Lee a little bit here as the head coach, what he's doing. And like I said, if their schedule is a little more manageable than some other teams in the SEC. So put it all together, I thought they could get to 3 wins. Probably the best quarterback, believe it or not, Vanderbilt's had in quite some time. Yeah,
if he takes care of the ball, we know what he can do on the ground. I think they could get 3 wins. I know that, like you talked about, there's the juice to that, but that's attainable. I think 3 wins for them. 3 or 4, sure.
All right, so I sent out and for subscribers, you guys know this of mine. College football season win totals and futures report went out on August 1st at the beginning of the month. So you guys know these ones already, but I'll throw out many of my best ones here right now. I'll try to give you one from the majority of these conferences, like a best bet, if you will, from each conference as far as win totals. I think my best bet as far as AAC goes is East Carolina over 6. I really think there's going to be some significant improvement for the Pirates this year. I like Mike Houston. They bring in Caton Hauser to compete with Jake Garcia at the quarterback spot for East Carolina. I think the offense has to improve, can only improve based on what we saw last year from them. And like I said, this is a very manageable schedule for them. Meanwhile, I think on the defensive side of the football, you look at last year, even when they had the tough season, defense held them in a lot of games, a lot of returning production back. Schedule's more manageable. East Carolina, the Pirates over 6. There's 6.5s out there with closer to even money, or you could lay the juice on the 6, which I did, just in case for a little extra security cushion that if they finish 6-6, you at least get your money back. So I think that was definitely something that appealed to me was East Carolina over 6. ACC, this was tough. There's a lot of win totals I like. I like SMU over that Connor mentioned. I like Stanford over with Troy Taylor and the job he's doing there. I know they're going to have some of these crazy ass West Coast to East Coast to West Coast travel spots. Yeah. So the West Coast team being in the ACC, but you're only asking for 4 wins. It's I think going to be a very capable offense this year, an improved defense for Stanford. You're only asking for 4 wins there. NC State, I think, can go over 8.5 too. I think that's a dark horse team in the ACC because look, it's set up very nicely for them. They bring in Grayson McCall, a very experienced quarterback from Coastal Carolina, who's not only a very good quarterback, but he's got just a ton of experience. And just to think of just how much they didn't get at the quarterback spot as far as consistency last year, NC State, what a difference it's going to be having a guy like Grayson McCall. They still have a very good defense that's always been the strength of the Wolfpack over the years. So for them, and again, a schedule where they avoid a lot of the heavyweights in the ACC, which is a benefit for NC State as well. So for them to go over 8.5, I like as well. The under I like in that conference is North Carolina. I think that team's headed downward. Drake May is a generational talent at quarterback, or at least the potential to be at the NFL level. You got to replace him. That's not the easiest guy to replace at the quarterback spot. His defense was horrendous last year again. And I know they've made a DC change, but not totally sure that the defense is just going to be great right away overnight. That's not a quick fix there. Schedule is more difficult than a lot of the other teams in the ACC. So the Tar Heels to take a step back this year, under 7.5. I did like that. Big Ten, I'm daring fucking James Franklin again to win 11 games. I don't see it. Give me Penn State under 10.5. It's minus 165. It's a little juicy. I don't think this is an 11 or 12 win team. They got to go damn near undefeated to get James Franklin, who can't beat Michigan, who can't beat Ohio State every single year.
Big game, James.
No, that's not happening. Sorry. It's just Drew Aller to me has got to show a lot more too. I'm not totally drinking the Drew Aller Kool-Aid either at quarterback. Singleton's an amazing running back. They should be really good on defense. I don't deny that whatsoever. But this is an offense that just can't put up the big points, put the big drives together, it seems, when it matters most. I have no problem trying. If you ask me, Ian, you're going to bet Penn State under, and they're going to need 11 wins to beat you, I'll say bring it every single time when it comes to James Franklin. So under 10.5 there. Another under in the Big Ten is UCLA, man. I think it's going to be real tough sledding for Deshaun Foster here. Kind of a surprising outside the box, off the grid hire as head coach, exodus from the program. And look, a UCLA team that's kind of Chip Kelly left it in basically shambles, let's be honest. And that's kind of what it is right now. They've got to deal with the upgrade and competition now, going to the Big Ten. That's not going to be easy. Of course, situationals and schedules are going to make them have to travel east and west. And, them matching up in the against some of those physical, wear you down, in the trenches, offensive and defensive lines that the Big Ten can throw at you. I think that could be some trouble here for UCLA as well this season. So I did like the under there with them. As far as the Big 12, I'm trying to see which one do I like the most here with this conference. Probably Utah over 9.5. I know you got to ask Utah to be 10-2 or better. There's not a lot of margin for error, room for error. 2 losses is the most they can have. But man, with Cam Rising back, he's going to make all the difference in the world. Think about how competitive Utah was last year with 0 at quarterback. The quarterback play in the offense was abysmal last year for Utah. And now they're going to have Cam Rising back. It's going to make all the difference in the world for them offensively. And keep in mind, too, you had to play a Pac-12 conference, pretty tricky. The Big Ten, actually, it might be a little bit of a benefit here for Utah because you're going to get a little bit of a softer underbelly of the schedule. And I think that's definitely going to benefit them. So, I really like what I see out of Utah last year. This has been a perennially, historically, consistently good program under Kyle Whittingham. Yeah, they had their down year last year, but again, they were gutted by injuries. Their O-line was ravaged. A lot of players on defense were out. They didn't have Rising all year. The quarterback play was awful. I think you throw all those things together, and it's perfectly reasonable, in my opinion, to expect Utah to have a little bit of a improvement here this year in 2000. And not just that, but I think they're very much alive to win that conference as well, the Big 12 this year. So, yeah, definitely liking Utah there in the Big 12. What else do we see? We'll just go quickly, rapid fire through some of these other conferences. Conference USA, for me, it's Sam Houston State over 4.5. You think about how they only need 5 wins. I don't mind their schedule. Casey Keeler is a very good head coach there. You'll think about the fact their offense was horrible early in the season, but it got better, and the defense really picked it up late, and they had Liberty that's right, Liberty, the class of that conference by far last year, and Sam Houston State nearly beat them. Had it first and goal at the 10-yard line with a chance to pull a huge upset as 3 touchdown underdogs against Liberty last year. So there's a lot to like with Sam Houston this year. Upgrade at the quarterback spot. I think their offense, which came to life down the stretch last year, will be better start to finish this year. I like what they bring back on defense, and they've got one of the more manageable schedules as far as Conference USA is concerned this season. So over 4.5 with the Bearcats of Sam Houston State in Conference USA. I like that win total quite a bit. As far as the MAC goes, there's one over and there's one under that I'm really interested in here. The over is Bowling Green. Bowling Green Falcons. Scott Loeffler's done a really nice job. They've got a very experienced quarterback in Connor Bazelak, who's been around the block, been around forever. Missouri transfers, been with Bowling Green now a couple of years. I think it's, he hasn't always lit the world on fire, but I do think this year now he's going to have a very good year. He's got a good offensive line. We saw the improvement. Bowling Green couldn't stop anybody 2 years ago when this coach first took over, and to see the improvement they've made on the defensive side of the football is significant. So Bowling Green over 6.5. For me, the under is Toledo, believe it or not. Toledo under 8.5. For a program that we usually think of as one of the top teams in this conference. But even with Toledo always being a contender in the MAC, I'm not the biggest fan of Candle as a head coach. He's had some head-scratching performances and big favorites, and they barely win or even lose outright. That's happened to Toledo a couple of times. It's not going to be easy to replace DeQuan Finn and his athleticism and his mobility. Now, he wasn't always an accurate thrower of the football, but it's not going to be easy to replace him. The defense, I think takes a step back this year. Not the easiest schedule. So put it all together, I think Toledo could go under there in that conference. Mountain West and Pac-2, if I had to pick a win total that I like there the most, I think it's Hawaii, quite honestly. I like Timmy Chang and what he's doing. You only need 5 wins. Braden Shager, I think, is going to have a very good year at quarterback for Hawaii. He's very experienced in the system now. I think the defense could be the best defense that Timmy Chang's had since he's been with this Hawaii program. I absolutely believe Hawaii definitely over 4.5 is a capable team of getting to 5 wins. So definitely interested in that there in the Mountain West. The SEC, like I already mentioned, Vandy over 2.5. I'm a big Mike Elko fan, so I do like Texas A&M over 8.5. Wegman is back at quarterback, and you sometimes coaches need a year, right, to really get the program turned around. He didn't need a year at Duke, did he, Mike Elko? Year 1, and he turned it around right away. Now, this is the SEC, I get it, but he turned it around right away at Duke. Why not at A&M? They were very undercoached. The coaching was porous at times from Jimbo and his coaching staff there. Let's be honest. It was not always a well-coached team. I think the offense in particular is going to get a huge spark. Mike Elko knows how to craft a good defense. Look at how that Duke defense transformed themselves when he was there. I think A&M absolutely could get to 9 wins. I like what I'm seeing. They finally are going to be coached and prepared well throughout the course of the season. So the over there on them. I'm kind of not buying into LSU on defense yet, so I kind of like their under 9.5 wins. I'd like Mississippi State under in this conference. I'm not sold on the Jeff Lebby hire. They're going to try to change the offensive scheme again. That could take some time to develop. So not really all that bullish on Mississippi State. And I think too many people are saying just because Nick Saban's gone, Alabama's going to fall apart. I actually think there's great value, tremendous value this year on Alabama. You're not replacing him with some stiff. You're replacing him with one of the great records, win-loss of someone that's coached the number of games that Kalen DeBoer has. Who took Washington to the national championship game, who works extremely well with quarterbacks. Jalen Milroe will probably have a very good year this year under Kalen DeBoer. And you're getting discounts on Alabama now this year, discounts in their win total, discounts in their SEC conference title and national championship futures pricing. I think Alabama to make the playoff at plus 110 out of the make the playoff market bets. I think that's one of the better bets out there. Alabama just to make the playoff at plus 110. I think they're still very much good enough to do that because I buy into the coach. The coach is phenomenal. Anyone that watches Kalen DeBoer operate knows that. He's a phenomenal coach. I know you're replacing a GOAT, right? An all-time great in Nick Saban. I get it. But Nick Saban has worked closely with Kalen DeBoer to assure an easy transition, or as easy as possible, to try to keep the core of the team together. Now, some of the players did transfer when Saban retired, but they did manage to keep a lot of them together. I think this is still capable of a 10-win football team this year, and certainly to be a playoff team. So I'm not throwing Alabama in the garbage dump just yet. And then in the Sun Belt, as far as win totals, I think I like Texas State over. They're really loaded. They really, really are loaded. I mean, that's a really good football team. It was a good offense last year, and you would think they end up losing A.J. Finley, who was their quarterback last year. He actually transferred out. They actually got a guy that's as good, if not better. The guy who lit it up at James Madison last year, Jordan McLeod. He's now going to be the quarterback at Texas State. That offense is going to be outstanding. G.J. Kinney, too, is turning into one hell of a good, young, up-and-coming head coach. What a job he's done already in a short time here at Texas State. I remember, you know how old we're getting, Connor Mack? G.J. Kinney, the head coach at Texas State, I'm old enough to remember he was quarterback at Tulsa, like a decade. That's how you can tell, like, Jesus, man, we're getting old. Oh, you're muted.
I was muted. I was muted up top. I thought it was like, yeah, we are getting there. As we start seeing these guys, we're getting old. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah, you call it.
It is. I mean, that's what you know. G.J. Kinney, like, it couldn't have been more than like 8 or 9 or 10 years ago. I was watching him at quarterback for Tulsa.
Yeah, it was just 10 years ago or so.
Now here he is, one of the great young head coaches in college football, and doing a great job at Texas State. I think they could win that Sun Belt Conference. They're certainly in the mix. They're certainly in the conversation. No question. James Madison, look, people, and it's funny because I think Cignetti took a lot of those players with him to Indiana. I think Indiana could be better than people think because I
know, me too.
I kind of like what they're doing, and there's another coach I believe in, but I still think James Madison. It's almost like people are, downgrading them a bit too much this year because of losing Cignetti and losing a lot of those JMU players from last year. But they're a team I'm neutral on. I didn't bet them over or under their win total, but I think people thinking they're going to drop might be just asking a bit too much. I think as far as an under in this conference is concerned, for me, it's Troy. And you would think, what? Come on, Ian. Troy's always good in the Sun Belt. Well, they lost a great coach. John Sumrall was phenomenal, man. Just an outstanding coach. They lose a lot of personnel, both sides. This could be the year that Troy doesn't look like Troy, that they really take a hard fall in the Sun Belt. So I went under their win total of 6.5. And then quickly from a futures standpoint, I think the best value future in the in AAC is South Florida. It's +7. I really like South Florida this year, and what they could be. UTSA might have some value too. I know they lose Frank Harris, who's been there forever, but Owen McCown is going to step in at quarterback and I think be very capable for them. He had a good bowl performance for the Roadrunners, so I don't think they fall back nearly as much. For me, my favorite ACC, conference futures, Florida State could win it, but I don't love the price as much. NC State, Virginia Tech, SMU at plus 700 or better to win the ACC. I think they all are worth a shot given the prices you're getting. SMU, as Connor Mack alluded to, the schedule sets up well for them. I really like Virginia Tech. Their defense should be better. Drones at quarterback. As soon as he became the starter last year, they finally said, get the fuck out of here, Grant Wells. Enough with this bullshit. Get out of here. You can't play. You've never been able to play with any sort of consistency. And once they went to drones at quarterback, it changed the season for Virginia Tech. And so I think he'll be even better now with a full year that he gets to be the quarterback. And I already talked about NC State getting Grayson McCall. That's the only thing they were missing was a good quarterback. They've got a solid, they got a good defense. Their offensive line should be all right. They just needed a quarterback that was better than MJ Morris and some of these other stiffs that played there last year. And they finally have that with Grayson McCall. Utah to win the Big 12. I would say Oklahoma State, UCF, kind of some dark horses in that conference as well to win. It's a wide open Big 12. It really is. There's no dominant team. There's no surefire favorite to win the Big 12 this year. That's going to be an exciting conference because there's a lot of teams that are going to feel like we are good enough to contend in the Big 12 this year. To me, don't overthink it with the Big 10. I just took Ohio State and Oregon. One of those teams I think is winning the Big 10. If one of them hits, you're going to make money. You bet them both for the same amount. Ohio State's plus 155, Oregon's plus 200 to win the Big 10. If one of them hits, you're profitable. I think you just keep it very simple there with the Big 10. I don't think it's anyone besides the Buckeyes or the Ducks. And by the way, look out for Dylan Gabriel this year with the Oregon Ducks. Obviously, not easy to replace Bo Nix, C-Mac, but they got a great transfer portal addition in Dylan Gabriel, very veteran quarterback.
Yeah, they did. And I think he'll be really good. And shout out to our guy, Bo Nix. Only preseason. We can't take a lot, but playing well
pretty damn good
with the Broncos.
Yeah.
Making just preseason
look like a genius for keeping it like a smokescreen that they were kind of interested initially in McCarthy and really keeping it hush-hush and under wraps that the guy they really liked and were working out and bringing him back for drills and workouts and all that was Bo Nix, in the spring. And let's not pat them on the shoulder back just yet. Let's see in week 1 and beyond, and he will be the starter. There's no way they're starting Jarrett Stidham now over Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos. Let's see what he does, though, when the live bullets are flying in the regular season. But there's no question about it that, he's impressed here in his 2 preseason games so far. Conference USA, look, be careful. Liberty should win this conference. That's why they're like a minus 200, minus 250 favorite. So if you're betting it, you're betting someone with a small chance that they upset Liberty. And for me, Sam Houston, quite honestly, 22-1. It's a little bit of a longer shot, but I really they almost beat Liberty last year, and Sam Houston State's even better this year. And I like the way they've improved on both sides of the ball. So but keep that small because really, when it's all said and done, Liberty should win that conference. They probably have the chance to go undefeated as well based on their schedule. The MAC, I like Bowling Green and Western Michigan is a bit. Look, Miami O is still good, but they did lose a bit. I don't trust Toledo this year. I think Western Michigan's improved. I think Bowling Green is definitely knocking on the door. And those 2 teams, you can get plus 650, plus 700 to win the MAC. Western Michigan and Bowling Green. I definitely think they are both live, potentially. Miami O is still good, and they're the defending champs, but don't know if they're nearly as good as they were last year. Plus, the thing, too, with Miami O, can we trust Brett Gabbert to finally stay healthy for a full season at quarterback for them? That's been a big problem, C-Mac. Can't stay healthy.
Yeah, can't stay healthy. And there's just so much. Like, if I were betting, there's no way I'm taking Miami Ohio. Even though a very good football team, they're going to be up there. I'm not taking them, even at plus 250.
That's a beat the favorite conference because the MAC is not one of those conferences where you get repeat champions all the time. Not lately, anyway.
Exactly, and there's just a ton of parity. I like what you're going with Bowling Green, Northern Illinois. Maybe there could be a sneak. with
Northern
maybe an
Illinois
Eastern
could win the
Michigan.
conference. Northern Illinois could finish with like 3 or 4 wins.
Bingo.
That's
This
a
is this
wide
is
range of possibility. And I don't like their
this is what
coach,
we see.
honestly, Amick. I'm not a big fan of him personally. But
Yeah. So what do we get? I kind of like, if you want to bomb, it would be Eastern Michigan. I mean, it's 30-1 here, but like you just talked about, they could win 3 wins or 8 wins, and this is a good one to bet live throughout the year, maybe too,
yeah.
as it goes on, because there is a ton of parity in the MAC. We love the MAC too. We'll get to that when they're on the weekdays in November.
Mountain West tough.
Games.
Boise State is just the class on paper. Like their roster is really good. Really, really, really good. They bought into Spencer Danielson. Look at the difference in the team. What a pathetic job. If I'm Andy Avalos, I'm disgraced with how I performed with this Boise State program. Because as soon as my door got sent, as soon as I got my can sent out the door last year, fired, look at what Boise did at the moment they let that guy go and Spencer Danielson took over in the interim. It was like a different football team. They just started winning, started looking like they were well prepared. They cut out the turnovers and penalties that had plagued them. And it just looked like a way better coached football team. And they bought into Spencer Danielson. They clearly liked playing for him. And they got red hot down the stretch, won the Mountain West, won the bowl game against UNLV. So you look at it, and they looked awesome down the stretch. Now, that was Talon Green. They're going to have, and shocker about Boise State, CMAC. Malachi Nelson was the guy everyone projected, the USC transfer. He's clearly going to win the job. No, he has not won the job. In fact, he's lost the job for the quarterback spot to Maddox Madsen, who is a guy that's played quite a bit of time last year, got quite a bit of playing time with Boise State. In fact, last year they would use Talon Green running, and they would often throw in Maddox Madsen throwing the ball because he's the better pocket passer. But yeah, that's pretty interesting development. That Malachi Nelson, people just assumed once he transferred to Boise, that's his job now. He's going to be the starter. No, apparently beaten out in both spring and fall camp by the incumbent Maddox Madsen. Either way, they're fine at quarterback, and I have no issues with it. The bottom line is they've got an incredible run game. This Ashton Genty kid, I mean, he's going to be one of the best running backs, and certainly the group of 5 might be one of the best running backs in really the entire country, quite honestly. So the Mountain West tricky. You always want to go with value, but to me, there's a real strong chance Boise State wins this conference, but they're priced like it. They're now like what, minus 110, minus 120 to win the Mountain West. I will say this, UNLV, Wyoming, and Hawaii, just a tiny little piece of those 3 teams I took to win the Mountain West, just for some dark horse value. Hawaii's more of a shot in the dark. Like, they will be better, but are they Mountain West winner better? Probably not, but at plus 5,000, I said, take a small shot. I don't think Wyoming's going to drop off as much. I know Craig Bowl is retired, and they sent him out with a victory last year in the bowl game, but this Jay Sawville takes over. He's in the it's the guy that was coaching in the program under Bowl. There shouldn't be a big learning curve. The defense is still going to be very good. I think the schedule is kind of manageable. I don't know if Wyoming is going to drop off a ton this year, quite honestly. And I'm actually one of the people that are glad that Andrew Peasley's gone to the NFL. I was never a big Andrew Peasley fan. So they actually could be better at quarterback this year, Wyoming. So keep an eye on the Cowboys. I don't think it's woe is me for them just because Craig Bowl retired.
Yeah, I think they get 6 or 7 wins for sure. I mean, pencil it in.
Yeah, there's no question. So that's a fascinating conference. There's no question about that when it comes to the Mountain West. Let's see what else. We don't have many left. SEC. I'm telling you, I'm not down on Alabama like so many people are. I think plus 750 for them to win the SEC. I mean, how often are you going to get Alabama at plus 750? People are acting like Nick Saban's being replaced by by the Cristobal or something, or some guy that can't be a great coach or something. You're being replaced by Jimmy Lake. That's a good comparison. Jimmy Lake, what a disaster he was with Washington. My goodness.
Yeah, rough time.
You're not replacing Nick Saban, one of the greatest coaches of all time, with a broomstick or with a stiff or a guy that can't get it done. This is Kalen DeBoer, folks. Go look at his all-time coaching record. Again, I will keep going back to that. Go and look at it. His all-time record is a 104-12. 104-12. His all-time head coaching record. They're not falling down like people think. And you're getting value this year for the first time in ages with Alabama. Plus 750 to I think plus one. I already said it. Plus 110 to make the playoff for Alabama is a phenomenal value bet, and I think a great chance to catch, because I think at the very least this is a playoff team. This guy with 104-12 in his head coaching career is not going to win enough games, albeit in a very, the mother of all, tough conferences, power conferences, the SEC, that this guy's not going to win enough games to at least get Alabama in the playoff. No, they're getting in the playoff. So yeah, I'm still liking Alabama. What do you think, CMAC, when it comes to the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? I mean, they went right for him when he was, he was just bingo, because they, zeroed in. That was the guy. Yeah, I don't know here. Georgia's at plus 200. I still think they're the best. A lot of high hopes with Texas.
They lose a lot on defense. Now they do reload usually. So don't be surprised if that's a great defense again halfway through the season. But early on, there could be some growing pains with that defense. Their offense is loaded, though. Their offense is going to be phenomenal this year.
They are good. I think the defense will be good too, especially as it goes on. I think, they just reload, kind of like Bama. And I just Ole Miss, I think, is good, but I don't think not them at that price. You'd rather go with Alabama, like you're talking about, than Ole Miss. And I think there's a lot of love for Texas. I need to see a little bit more. I need to see it here. They were solid, obviously, last year. That defense needs to be better, especially in this conference, if they want to win it.
Yeah, and as far as the Sun Belt, I forgot the Sun Belt. Last but not least, Texas State to win the Sun Belt. Texas State's probably the one I like the most to win the Sun Belt. App State, look, App State's really good. Like Aguilar, we saw what he did at quarterback last year for them. The defense should be good. This is another one, though, where the coach still not the biggest fan of their head coach there at App State, but no, they're very good. They can win the conference. Talent-wise, they certainly can, App State. But I think Texas State, there actually is value with Madison. Even though they lose Signetti, they lose a lot of that team from last year. There's some value there with them. And then to make the playoff, I'll just throw out a couple that I think have the value. NC State plus 500. A&M plus 260. I already mentioned Alabama plus 110. Utah, definitely Utah plus 260. You have to like that because I think they win that. Winner of the Big 12 conference is obviously making the playoff. The question is, does the Big 12, this is the great debate, and it's really going to depend on how the other teams in the other power conferences do, but is the Big 12 going to get two teams in, or are they only going to get their conference champion in? That's right now, I would think, if you ask me right now, they're only going to get their conference champion in. They're probably going to defer to putting in 2 or 3 or 4 Big 10 teams, 2 or 3 or 4 SEC teams, before they put in more than one Big 12 team. So that would be what I would think right now. Plus, they have to have a spot for the Group of 5, at least one Group of 5 team. So that is definitely something to consider when it comes to these make or miss the playoff bets. But no, as far as I'm concerned, though, Utah, Alabama, I'm very high on A&M because of Elko, because we saw it at Duke. Duke was a 1-year turnaround. Sometimes that first year, even though when you hire a head coach, CMAC, that first year, it's growing pains. It doesn't happen right away. That would be my concern with Willie Fritz, for example, with Houston. Phenomenal hire, but it's just he left that program in such tatters, in such an absolute unmitigated disaster, Dana Holgerson, that it's going to end up taking maybe Willie Fritz at least into year 2 to get it revved up again with Houston. But I respect the hell out of Fritz. I know a lot of people love them under Houston, their win total playing in that Big 12, but I'm telling you what, I can't bet Willie Fritz win total that low under. He's that good of a coach. It's just a question of, is the mess too big to clean up and make that kind of a jump right away? That's what you have to ask yourself. But yeah, there we go. Those are my playoff bets. The ones I like the most: Alabama, Utah, A&M. I think, Liberty certainly could make. If Liberty wins the conference and goes undefeated, they get in to the playoff. There's no question about that. Even with that the cupcake schedule is an easy easy peasy schedule for Liberty. They have to go undefeated. I think they probably have to run the table just because their schedule is so easy. But if they do, they'll be in the playoff. Boise's got a good chance to make the playoff as a group of 5 team. So those are some of the playoff futures bets that I like.
You know what the one is I didn't find a ton of value with Utah. You know, the 9.5 wins at -150. But if you really like Utah, and maybe don't want to take that, take this. Take them here +200 to make the playoff. Like if you really like Utah, because I thought that one kind of had the most value for the price with some of these other bigger schools. If you like them, I love that number.
Heisman, last but not least, and then we'll get into the 2 games on Saturday for week 0. But Heisman, how many times have I mentioned Alabama in this fucking show already? You know I'm on Jalen Milroe +1,500 to win the Heisman, working with a quarterback guru, quarterback savant like Kalen DeBoer. So, I think that's phenomenal value, 15-1 Jalen Milroe to win the Heisman Trophy. I got that at DraftKings. A couple other look, and you want to really focus on quarterbacks. Like as much as we want to think the receivers and the running backs and a tremendous dominant defensive player has a chance to win the Heisman. How many fucking times did non-quarterbacks win the Heisman, right? Not many times. So you really do want to stick mostly to quarterbacks. I know a lot of people will like Gabriel for Oregon, but at the price I don't like as much. Carson Beck for Georgia, +800, but I don't like the price as much. There's a couple down the board. Cam Rising, Utah, 40-1. I think that's value. Why not? He's healthy. We know he's a good quarterback when he's healthy and he's on the field. We've seen it in the past. Why not? A 40-1 shot. Cameron Rising for Utah to win the Heisman. I think Connor Wegman's going to be a very pleasant, not surprise, but I think he'll have a breakout year now that he's healthy for A&M. 30-1. I think was worth a little shot. Keep an eye on the Tennessee quarterback, too, because this guy started the bowl game because Joe Milton didn't play it, and he went up against Iowa in that bowl game, and he really looked good, and he's got all the skills and the tool set, and the toolbox to be a really good college quarterback, and he's going to be the number 1 guy full-time this year, and that's Nico Iamaleava is how you say it. Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback here for Tennessee, really looked good in the bowl game. Josh Heupel is singing his praises in camp, saying he really thinks this offense can thrive and he can run it the way. And he's got a mobile quarterback, too, which is what he wants in this offense. And I think a little more accurate throwing the football than old Joe Milton was. That was always the issue with Joe Milton, just consistency and accuracy in the pocket. And I think you're not going to have as much of an issue with that with Nico at quarterback here for Tennessee. So I actually thought even at 16-1, his price to win the Heisman was not bad. And then some real long shots. Keep these small. Chiron Drones for Virginia Tech, 100-1. Grayson McCall for NC State at 110-1. Just for some longer shots. Do they win the Heisman? Probably not. But I thought their price was a little disrespectful. So there you go. That went. Gave you a lot there. Win totals. Futures. CMAC gave you a bunch as well. Again, we just launched the new channel for the show over the weekend, so we didn't have any college football preview shows, but there you go. There's a nice little quick version of a college football preview for the upcoming season. I do want to also point out that if you're looking for full college football conference previews, check out my own personal YouTube channel, Ian Cameron, at Bobano Bets on YouTube. We've got conference previews for every conference in college football. So, and more to come this week. So make sure you check that out if you want more in-depth team-by-team analysis there. All right, CMAC, for the first time since last season, it's time to break down some games. And we have 2 games coming up this weekend in college football, 2 FBS games. Obviously, there's a few FCS games as well. But we'll focus on the 2 that have lines, and those are the 2 games with 2 FBS teams facing off. The first one being at noon Eastern on Saturday. And again, this is your annual Dublin, Ireland showcase game, just like last year when it was Notre Dame and Navy at Aviva Stadium. We've got Florida State taking on Georgia Tech. This is actually an ACC conference game right off the hop here for these 2 teams. Florida State, 11.5 point favorites, 55.5 being the total. here in this game. Florida State, Jordan Travis out, obviously, no longer quarterback. He moves on, but they bring in obviously one of the most experienced quarterbacks you could add outside of Grayson McCall, maybe to NC State, and that's DJ Uiagalelei, who now finds his way with Florida State, formerly with Clemson, formerly most recently with Oregon State. And now here he is with Florida State. And I think when you look at his addition, look, you're talking about adding someone with 1,000 pass attempts in college football. So you're talking about someone that obviously has a boatload of experience. That's 100% what you want to see. So as far as experience goes, you've got that here with DJU. Alex Atkins has been a very good offensive coordinator. They had a very good offense last year. I think when you look at the team, the question for DJU, CMAC, is going to be still his accuracy and that deep ball accuracy too. Not always there. He's a good quarterback, but there's a reason why he's still in college and NFL teams aren't, just chomping at the bit for him to declare for the draft. And it's because of some of those accuracy issues throwing the football. So I think that's definitely something that he's got to continue to hone in on, continue to work at and improve on here because that's always been a little bit of the downfall. He's got a great athlete, can run. We know that, but that's always been the issue with him a little bit with DJU. That arm is a big one, but it's not always the most accurate arm. And, of course, he can run. He's got that physicality as well, tough to bring down in the open field. But, again, that accuracy is going to have to improve, no question. I think when you look at the running back spot here for this Florida State team, obviously, look, they end up losing Benson. But I think when you look at who they bring back, Lawrence Toafili is back. He had a pretty good year for them. Roydell Williams transfers in from Alabama. I think that's a nice addition for them at running back. Number 7 running back available in the transfer portal, and Florida State gets him from Alabama and Roydell Williams. So credit to Mike Norvell for a nice pick there, or a nice grab, nice get there in the transfer portal, which, of course, you got to be on top of this shit now with the transfer portal. Holy fuck. I mean, there is just so much activity, and teams are just adding and subtracting to their teams, C-Max, so much these days from the transfer portal. It's definitely something you got to keep an eye on. Obviously, look, you're talking about Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, right? 2 outstanding receivers that are no longer there. So who's going to step up now as far as the wide receiver spot for this team? They do like Ja'Kai Douglas. No question about that. Jalen Brown transfers in from LSU. He's got some potential. Malik Benson from Alabama comes in as well. I think another nice add in the transfer portal for Florida State. So, yeah, I mean, you would think normally most regular situations, Keon Coleman gone, Johnny Wilson gone, we got problems here at wide receiver. But, boy, he recruits well, recruited well at that position, and he really got some nice Power 5 additions in the transfer portal to that wide receiver group. So that is probably going to prevent Florida State drop-off at wide receiver as far as production being as much or as bad as people may think. I think they still could be solid enough. Maybe not quite as good as last year, but solid enough still at receiver coming into this season. As far as the offensive line goes for the Florida State Seminoles, they got 3 of their starters back, including both tackles in the center. That's huge. And the other linemen, they added a couple of really good Power 5. I keep saying Power 5. I told you this is going to be an adjustment for me. I warned you. Power 4 adds in the transfer portal on the offensive line. And the offensive line at times last year did have some struggles for Florida State. I actually think their O-line's better. You tell me a position group that's definitely better, probably a little weaker at receiver. I'm, running back, we'll see. Quarterback, DJU's got the experience, but will he be as productive as Jordan Travis? But I definitely think they've thumbs up on the O-line. I think their O-line is better this year than it was last year. So I think Florida State will be fine there as far as that goes. On the defense, though, look, a great defense last year. This is where the concerns are for me. There's definitely some concerns, a few more concerns on the defense. It was an elite defense last year, but 7 of the top 12 tacklers are gone. So a little bit of a reload here on defense for Adam Fuller, the DC. Keep in mind, Jared Verses don't walk through the door every single day. That was a surefire, dominant pass rusher for them. He's gone, of course, to the NFL now. Braden Fiskey also gone. But they do have Joshua Farmer is back. That'll help. It's going to be. They do have a couple. They did bring in some talent as far as the transfer portal too to help out with the defensive line, which did take a huge hit from after last year losing some of the guys they did. The good news is they at least have Patrick Payton returning. He had a pretty good year for them last year, but there's no doubt the D line does take a small hit from last year based on losing a Braden Fiske.
Still pretty good though.
Losing a Jared Hurst, but still pretty solid. It's just a question of can they gel together quickly. The linebacking core is where I'm concerned. All right, two of their just stalwarts there, Kalen DeLoach, Tatum Bethune are gone. And you're going to have to replace those. Now, again, you do bring in a couple at Sean and Murphy out of Alabama as a power 4 transfer, a couple others as well. But, I mean, that linebacking core is thin compared to what we've seen in the past. No doubt. Secondary has concerns. Both of their corners were selected early in the draft last year. 3 starters gone. And secondary, sometimes it takes time with your pass defense when you do lose personnel there. So D-line does decline a bit, but it's not as I still think good, solid. But linebacker and secondary are a little bit concerning here for Florida State. Eventually, they'll be very good with those two groups, but I'm saying early in the season, there could be some adjustment. Flip it around to Georgia Tech, and what a weird season that team had last year where they've had some just incredible highs, beating Miami, some incredible performances. That was the one that stood out for Georgia Tech last year, but they had some unbelievably shocking losses as well on their schedule. So what will we get from them last year? Because, look, they beat Miami, North Carolina, but geez,
they had some close losses. Right away to Louisville, to Georgia, they played them tough at the end.
Yep. Yeah. And then they had a team like Bowling Green beat. And Bowling Green, solid MAC team, but there's no fucking way they should have beat Georgia Tech last year. But the bottom line is they just were all over the map. What I really like about Georgia Tech this year is their offense. It's the strength of the team and their O-line.
Mm-hmm.
There's people talking about Georgia Tech having one of the best offensive lines in the country this season, not just the ACC. And when you look at it, you understand why. The trench play has been awesome. And keep in mind, too, their head coach, Brent Key, very well versed in crafting O-lines. He's an offensive line coach by trade. So this is a guy that knows how to put together a very good offensive line. He did it at Alabama years ago. And you look at that O-line, it was pretty good last year. Probably be even better. This is a top-tier elite offensive line this year. It really is. When you look at what they bring. They only allowed 39 sacks last year. And this year, when you look at it, what they bring back, 4 of the starters are back. Right tackle, center, left guard, left tackle. They're all back, and they recruited well. They have depth there now along the O-line. If they sustain injuries, they're not totally done for. That's a really good O-line, and that means good things for Haynes King, the returning quarterback here for Georgia Tech, who, look, with him, he's got to cut down on the interceptions. That's the big thing. That's the key. That, no pun intended. That's something he's got to improve on. Just way too many. You can't have I think he had double digit. I think he almost had 16 interceptions is what I got for him. Yeah, he's got to work on that. But he also had almost 3,000 passing yards. He ran for almost 700 rushing yards. He still had 25 passing touchdowns last year, more than that. He's a very good quarterback, very athletic as well. He's just got to cut down on the bad decisions and just better ball security from him this year. So King is back. The O-line is absolutely outstanding. 6 of the top 7 receivers are back for Georgia Tech this year. No question. So there's a lot to like here as far as this team is concerned on offense. They look really good. Let's just call it like we see. It's a really good offense overall coming into the year for Georgia Tech. The defense is the concern because their defense was not great last year. We'll see Tyler Santucci, new defensive coordinator. And look, this is a guy that worked under Mike Elko at Duke, so he knows a thing or two about turning around a defense. But will it happen right away is going to end up being the big question here for Georgia Tech, because you look at the defensive line, 2 defensive starters, two starters on the D-line are back. Only half of their secondary starters are back. So that's going to be a concern. Just like with Florida State, there are some concerns both in the secondary this year. because the safety spot. Both of their starters are back, but they lose like 4 or 5 guys from the corner spot. And this is a team that wasn't exactly adept and the greatest in pass defense last year necessarily. So there's concerns on defense for Georgia Tech a little bit. But again, it's a defense that struggled last year. They bring in a good DC, and Santucci did great things at Duke under head coach Mike Elko, but it could take some time when it's all said and done with the defense. So this is early in the week. 55.5 being the total. If the weather is even decent, we don't get rain, we don't get a ton of wind, there could be points in this game, honestly, because I think Florida State's offense and their offensive line's improved. Their defense, again, has got a lot of changeover. Linebacker, secondary in particular, there's big change from last year. The D-line took some hits, and yes, they filled the holes on the D-line about as pretty solidly. But again, will that unit that was so dominant for FSU last year gel right away? And then on the other side, you got Georgia Tech, where I definitely see Mac have their offense ahead of their defense to begin the season. So if this weather even ends up being decent for this game in Ireland, I might consider over 55.5. And as far as the side goes, Georgia Tech was very good in the double-digit underdog role last year. And certainly there's still concerns on defense. But, man, their offense could be really good. They have a chance to take advantage of a Florida State defense where in the back seven, that's where there are some legit, concerns about whether they'll be good right away, especially at the linebacker position, especially in the secondary. Is Florida State going to be good right away? There could be some plays to be made in the passing game for Haynes King against, a little more of a vulnerable back seven. Not to mention, even though the D-line, which took hits, did replace those losses decently, you're talking about continuity and chemistry being there right away in your first game of the season, and that's not always going to happen. So I think Georgia Tech can probably move the football here in this game against this Florida State defense. So I do lean over the total. I haven't bet it yet because I'm holding off. If you like the over, there's no reason to bet it yet. I don't think we're going to see much movement. We want to make sure, too, we wait till Friday when the weather's picture is a little clearer. You don't want to be – the forecast could change 10 times between now and Saturday. So I say wait until Friday. We'll get a better idea of what the weather forecast will be. But for me, early week lean over, and I'm very tempted by Georgia Tech here, plus 11.5 points. Again, this was a very good underdog team last year. We saw what they did against Miami as a dog. We saw what they did against North Carolina last year as a dog. And, Florida State's still very much an ACC contender this year, but laying 11.5 on a neutral field, far away from home, where you've got concerns on your defense on all three levels, especially the linebacker and secondary spot. You're breaking in a new quarterback, even though he is experienced in DJU, and your offense, still could take some time because of that. That's a lot to be laying week 1 or week 0 in this case, far away from home. C-Mac, what do you think here? Dublin, Ireland, our season opener, Florida State, Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Dublin, Ireland. Here we are. You hit a bunch. Florida State just lost a ton. You know what I mean? But DJU is their QB. They lost the big wideouts. They just bring back what? I think it's around 55, 58% of their production. They lost some of that great defense a bunch. But I think the defense will be okay. We will see. And maybe the secondary. I think the D-line's probably the best part. I think they could maybe get exposed in the secondary for Florida State. But I think DJU, I think they could move the ball in this game. And the key is, let's get to Georgia Tech. Let's just get right to it. Their defense, dead last in the ACC. This team was just horrible. And against the run, I think they were 131. Horrible. We knew that. They gave up a ton on the ground as well. So they're working on that with their D-line. This is a team, though, as a dog, who was very good. You hit on. They're very, very good. 2 games, though. Clemson, Ole Miss, against better competition, they didn't cover at all. The other games they did. These teams, just to hit on the head-to-head, haven't played in a while. 2022, Florida State blew them out. But all the games, 12, 14, 15, 20. Close games, Georgia Tech won them. I know Florida State a little down in that part. Just throwing that out there. Used to play each other, a lot more every single year, these teams. And here's to get to it. The quarterback, the offense, boom. one of the best offensive lines, definitely. Singleton, pretty good wide receivers after him too, I think, that are there. Jamal Haynes, good running back, 1,000 yards. They should be able to run the ball, and Haynes King is the dual threat. He'll be able to run as well. My problem is Haynes King a little bit. So in the wins last year, 13-5, the interceptions. In the losses, 13-11. And those big games like Clemson, because I was on them, I remember this. He threw 4 picks. They were ugly. He throws some ugly balls sometimes. But he's kind of turned the corner. I mean, I think he can move the ball here against Florida State. I think they're alive in this one. I think Florida State does have some of the talent. It's the defense here for Georgia Tech. Like, can they make some plays? Like I talked about in that secondary too. You mentioned they have a whole bunch of guys they got that transfer from Tennessee. Burrell, pretty good kid, played over there a lot, had some distractions. I think he's a 5th-year senior. They got him. And a bunch of guys are trying to work with this D line, and definitely rotate is Georgia Tech. And I don't know how much they can stop Florida State in their run game. So two teams that can move the ball. We'll just get over it. Totals in week 1, 0. I'm always, me, man, I've talked about it for years. There's always just a little bit. I'm like,
I'll just throw this out
cautious.
there, C-Mac, with the total. Last year, it was 41-16 for Florida State against Georgia Tech when they played. 57 points scored. And you got to think Georgia Tech's going to put up more this year.
Yeah, in 2022. But yeah, 41-16. Georgia Tech's more of an over team.
Yeah.
Too. I forget what it's the last year and a half just to date. 13 out of the last 18 have gone over, and they've when we've covered them the last few years, even with things, they were trend a little bit more to an over. So do we get good weather? It's too far out. There still looks like there's going to be a little bit of rain. Of course, it's Ireland. What do you expect? Doesn't look like a ton of wind, but we'll know more as the week goes on to look at the total. But yeah, how do you not? I love dogs, Anna. And I think this could be a game where Florida State, I could see them winning by 2 touchdowns. I think you have to take the points here, Georgia Tech. I'll be honest.
Definitely. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes here. I thought that was last year. My bad. That was a couple of years ago. The 41-16.
Yeah, they hadn't played in a couple of years, which is weird.
Played in a couple of years. Okay, yeah, that was a couple. So never mind that. Totally different situation at that time. But yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you're right. A lot of overs last year for Georgia Tech. It's going to be interesting here because, like I said, their offense is really good. How much improvement can the defense make? It's going to end up being a big question for Georgia Tech this year because that's clearly where they were lagging behind last year. There's no doubt about that. But again, you're talking for Florida State. DJU's experience, but he's still going to a new team, learning a new offense.
Yeah.
And the O-line's really good for Florida State. I will say that. It's actually even better than last year. They do have some receivers to replace.
And that's who they're bringing back in that production. They lost their running back, quarterback, the wideouts, the tight end. Who they're bringing back, the 3 or 4, is on that line for Florida State.
So that O-line could be very good. And they could still overpower Georgia Tech's defensive front in that regard because that was always an issue. They just the defensive front got manhandled at times last year for Georgia Tech. So I could see both teams having their share of offensive success, providing that the weather is not, a downpour and, 40-mile-an-hour winds. Then it can't bet an over if it's like that. But if it's just a couple of stray showers, like a light drizzle, and very light wind, that's not going to affect the scoring. It's only if it's going to be really, really heavy wind. So keep an eye on the forecast, but definitely something you want to bet as far as the total closer to kickoff, because like I said, especially in Ireland, weather could change 8 different times between now and Saturday. All right, the other game on Saturday as far as 2 FBS teams facing off, SMU, Nevada. We've got SMU 27-point road favorites, 56.5 the total in this game. Huge move here toward SMU. This opened below 3 touchdowns with SMU as road favorites all the way up to 27. So all spring, all summer, the money's poured in on SMU and people high on SMU, even with the move to the ACC from the AAC. And sometimes there's questions about can they handle the step up in class, against, better conference, better competition on a weekly basis. Man, there's still a lot to like with this Rhett Lashley SMU team. I mean, last year on offense, they were loaded. And I like that they mix it up. They take shots downfield, play action. They run the football, RPO, because they've got quarterbacks that are mobile, including the returning Preston Stone, who saw his season obviously end prematurely last year due to injury. Kevin Jennings had to finish the season at quarterback for the Mustangs, but Preston Stone is back. 8 starters are back on the offense this year. They bring back just a stable at running back. Jalen Knighton, L.J. Johnson, Kamar Wheaton. I mean, they're fine at running back. They're going to be absolutely outstanding there. No question about that. Definitely a very balanced receiving core. What I like about their offense is they don't have one guy that's just dominating the production, getting all the targets. They have a bunch that can return and do damage. Jake Bailey. They have a good tight end in R.J. Maryland, Jordan Hudson. That's a solid depth at receiver for them as well. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Romello Brint, they like some of the other players in this depth chart too as well at receiver. So there's going to be, they could go probably 6 or 7 deep at receiver, even though they may not have that one dominant, surefire number one receiver this year, SMU, which is good to see. The offensive line is the area where there's a little greater concern. 3 starters are gone this season. But the good news is the transfer portal really came in handy here for Rhett Lashley as far as trying to retool this offensive line and make sure it doesn't drop off too much from last year, because they bring in a guy, Savion Byrd, which was a big addition for this team via the transfer portal along that offensive line, as well as P.J. Williams. That should help. They've got definitely some more experience. They also brought in a couple of transfer portal additions to shore up the O-line, add to the depth of it from Arkansas, which should absolutely help this team too. So lots to like as far as the O-line. That's not, even with 3 starters back, you think normally you're in bad shape, but they did a good, nice job patching things up here along the offensive line here for SMU. The defense was the story, right? This SMU team, for as long as I've been alive, they've always been a team that could score points but never stop anybody. Well, that changed last year. This was a much better defensive team. Look at all the statistical categories they improved in. Yards per game on the ground allowed, yards per pass allowed. They cut basically. They went all the way down to barely 17 points per game allowed last year. Just all the improvements they made on that defensive side of the football. 16th in the country as far as returning production on defense for SMU coming into this season as well. So that's what you want to see, no question. You look at it, they should be absolutely outstanding. They have they've put in a lot of power 4 caliber talent on the D line, and it is really, really showing. There's no doubt. And they bring in guys like Elijah Roberts and Jordan Miller from Miami, which was good. But they get back Anthony Booker from Arkansas. I mean, they've just done such a nice job. Jonathan Jefferson added to the portal from Georgia to shore up that defensive line as well. So, SMU's done such a really nice job at attacking the transfer portal. And by the way, they have some money to spend too. They've been getting into things as far as NIL is concerned, and they've opened up the checkbook, if you will, to try to entice some of these players to play here. And that certainly helped as far as increase the level of talent. Starting linebackers are back, Kobe Wilson and Ahmad Walker. You look at the secondary, they're good at the safety spot. There's no question. Cornerback as well, should be solid there too. The secondary was a much improved group last year. Tons of returning starters. They're loaded on the offensive line, even with 3 starters back. They're still loaded because of who they brought in. The defensive line is loaded. Secondary and linebacking core should be good. I mean, this is a really good football team, both sides of the ball. And you can understand why people like them to be more competitive and more of a factor in the ACC, even in year 1 in this brand new Power 4 conference than people think. Now, on the other side, you've got Nevada. And obviously, that's where the question marks are for them coming into this year. And there are a lot of them. There's no doubt. There's a big rebuilding project that they've had here with the Nevada Wolfpack. Not an easy place to turn things around with what we've seen. Jeff Choate now comes in, brand new head coach here with this Nevada Wolfpack team. I think when you look at them as far as the offense goes this year, Brendan Lewis looks like it was him and Chuba Party battling it out to be the starting quarterback. Juba Party, a transfer from Nebraska. C-Mac, you've seen Brendan Lewis. This is a guy, obviously, that played at Colorado before. I've seen enough of Brendan Lewis to know that guy is not someone I'm trusting at quarterback. Sorry, just not trusting him.
He's going to start, too.
Yeah.
They just announced it.
I think it is going to be him. Yep.
Yeah, they just announced it. I saw it like an hour or two ago.
I expected him to have the inside track, but yeah, I saw him enough at Colorado to know. You talk about this guy constantly lived in the 58% range as far as completion rate when he was with Colorado. That's not going to. So I know. Look, I get it. You're not in the Pac-12 anymore, right? It's a step down in class in terms of competition, opposing defenses for Brendan Lewis here at Nevada. I get it, but I'm going to have to see it before I believe it from this quarterback, because he was never that impressed me when he played at Colorado. So I'm going to have to see it, from Brendan Lewis before I'm ready to believe it. You look at that offense too; it's going to be interesting. The offensive line this season, they could improve, but they also, they did add some nice Power 4 transfers. I will say that, with a lot of starts under their belt. So maybe that O-line can be better. We'll have to wait and see on this. The defensive line actually should be improved, but how much it ends up being the question. There are depth concerns at linebacker. As far as the cornerback situation is concerned, man, there was a lot of replacements there. And it could take time for some of those replacements. Like, talking about 4 really good starters that they're trying to replace on that secondary for the Wolfpack. And again, all the while you're bringing in a new coach and new schemes also on both sides of the ball. So really, really tough for Nevada. The question is this line gotten too big? Because where I stand right now, if you got to the 20.5, 21, even below 24, I can make a case to lay it with SMU. But 27 now, that's getting up there. And it is still a road game. You got to go to Reno. Now, again, road trips first week of the season shouldn't be a big deal, because, this is your first game of the season. You have so much time to get acclimated to the time zone change and get to Reno and all that, no doubt. But I'm not crazy about taking minus 27 now with SMU when you could have had it at 20.5, 21 months ago. You know what I mean? So I don't think I could get there with Nevada, unless, of course, this got to some crazy high number where maybe if it did get above 4 touchdowns at some point, maybe then you could.
I don't think it does.
Take them, but I don't think it will. I think it'll stay in this range. As of now, I have no bet on this game. I am high on SMU. I just don't know if the value is great right off the chute in this particular spot to bet them. C-Mac, what do you think here? SMU, Nevada.
Yeah, I don't have a bet on this one either. Now, if you got in early on SMU, they're going to score points. This Nevada defense.
SMU first half or SMU team total over?
Well,
you could also go
41.5.
Flip it around and go Nevada team total under, quite honestly, as well.
Yes, they struggled to score. We'll see if they can put up any points. So team total 41.5. Stay under the 6 touchdowns there. Minus 120. That's if you like SMU. But this has crept up, and it's finally, I'm seeing, even this morning, the bite back here, I was like, this got to 27.5 at a ton of places. I'm like, because if it got to 4 touchdowns, one thing, Nevada got blown out twice, the first week against SC and the last game against Wyoming. But other than that, they played Kansas. So there was a lot of sleepwalking maybe in some of those games from those teams, but they covered. They covered and were decent against the number. New coach, like you talked about. Lewis isn't great. I think Purdy will see him at some time. And that awful defense. So defense is horrible, one of the worst. They bring back a ton from the horrible defense. Will it get any better? This is a team that brings like 75%.
A damn good team out the chute. So how much are you going to see in a game against an opponent like this, correct? Yep. Yeah,
and they don't have a ton of great players. Their linebacker Watts is pretty good. But other than that, it's going to be a struggle for them. But that's what I was thinking. I'm like, if this got to the 4 touchdowns, because it's gone up that much, that's what I wanted to talk about. Now you had my attention a little bit, because it's still, like you mentioned, a road game here. It's in Reno. I know it's week 1. And I'm high on SMU. I just think it was starting to get out of hand. They should be able to score, though, pretty much here. You talk about, we mentioned Stone, how good he is. That defense, like a little bit better, Savannah, like last year, and they bring back a ton here. Their top 7 tacklers. Elijah Roberts is really good. I think he had 10 sacks off the edge. He should be excellent. I mean, SMU wins this game. But like we talked about, look to their team total. I think they'll score enough. But I'd be leery if you're just going to go throwing around and almost laying 4 touchdowns now. The back door could be swinging wide open in this game.
Be careful with the full game over, because you may need 52 or 56 points from SMU to go over this total. Because I don't.
They might put that. I don't know. They might put up. It's week 1.
That's the concern with that. So that's why I'm
sorry. Week 0. It's really week 1.
Yeah. I'd be careful with the total, because I just don't know how much Nevada's offense is going to work. I think people really, really have to realize how much like SMU was like fringe top 25 defense last year, and they're probably going to be even better this year on defense with what they bring back. Like, they're one of the top 20 teams, like I said, in returning production on the defensive side of the football this year, SMU. So a defense that already improved so much last year, was a pretty good defense. They could be an awesome defense this year. And it's the kind of defense that can shut down an offense like Nevada, with very, very, very suspect quarterback starting for them in Brendan Lewis, who, again, I'll go watch any Colorado game that he started. Accuracy problems. He does have some athleticism, but not, it didn't make up for some of the wayward throws, inaccuracies, and really bad decisions too. Just too many interceptions too, and turnovers. So, like I said, not a Brendan Lewis believer. I know it's a step down in class, but this is not this week. You could talk all you want. Okay, Brendan Lewis, it's a step down in class. Yeah, eventually, when you're playing New Mexico and some of the teams in your own conference later in the season, it's not a step down in class in week 0, CMAC, because this is a damn good SMU team. That's going to be the concern, is that, the grand scheme of things, going from playing in the Pac-12 with Colorado to playing in the Mountain West with Nevada, you should see a little bit of an easier schedule and, not quite as good defensive units on the other side. That's not the case here with this SMU team. So that's why, for me, I have a hard time envisioning Brendan Lewis lighting things up here against this Mustangs D.
Sure.
All right. No doubt. Great stuff. There you go. That's just to whet the appetite there. We've got plenty more college football game breakdowns coming up throughout the course of the season. And again, we are here every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here on our own brand new Hitting the Books College Football Show YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/@hittingthebooks2024. That is the link for the YouTube channel. I posted it on the Twitter X, so did CMAX. So make sure you sign up, subscribe to the channel. We will be at this time every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Same day, same time. We've always done this show over the years. And again, same format, weeknight games, and the majority of the Saturday marquee games, we will preview them right here every week on the College Football Hitting the Books show. Shout out to our people in the chat for our very first show on our brand new channel, Nate Dogg, Kong's Clips. There it is. He was the one that was as excited as anybody to have us come back this season.
We'll get it going too on this channel. We'll have all the and we got to break these games down in a little longer form. Our normal one be quicker. As much as I love to break down the players and everything, this is a gambling. We're here to make money.
No doubt.
It's total.
We're going long with the game breakdowns because there's only 2 this week. We're going to have to go at a brisk pace starting next week.
By the way, Banana, let me touch on
we're going to do 2-hour shows again, just like last year, but we don't want to go too much longer than 2 hours.
No. Anything Delaware, Hawaii, Montana State, New Mexico, real quick?
I got to see lines, and I don't see any lines. Or actually, there are a couple.
It's 10. Yeah.
Okay, there are a couple. Montana. I was thinking of the FCS games. Okay. Oh, you're talking about the extra games where it's an FBS team versus.
Yes.
Here's the thing. Montana State's a damn good FBS team. Really, really.
10
good.
points?
But 10 now? No, I can't.
I don't think so.
Accepted by New Mexico. Look, they hired Mendenhall. Bronco Mendenhall's been around the block now at BYU, Virginia. It's an experienced coach. Look, you're buying low on New Mexico because, look, the Danny Gonzalez run was horrendous.
Oh, it was awful.
They had no
I'm close to moving already on it. I just – Montana State is that good. Their 2 QB systems gone this year. It's just, what's his name, Tommy Malott, whatever. But they have O-line guys that took off. They're kind of reconfiguring And they're very good. They're a top 5 team, Montana State. But every time they've played over the last years, even a bad team, but it's that they have not. Well, and now they got to win by 10 points. Some people think they're going to go in there and smash New Mexico. I think Bronco Mendenhall, it's week 1, but I'm tempted here now that it's at 10 here to take New Mexico State. New Mexico.
This is a TV game, by the way. Fox Sports 1 for this game on Saturday, and it's 4 p.m. Eastern. So you could say this is like a third game on Saturday because it does involve an FBS team. 4 p.m. Eastern. It'll be on all by itself. It actually is kind of a triple header because you're going to have Florida State, Georgia Tech at noon. You're going to have this game, Montana State, New Mexico at 4 Eastern. And then you're going to have the night game at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is SMU, Nevada. And you also have Delaware State, Hawaii at midnight on Saturday. I really like Hawaii
should score a ton of points.
I'm not ready to lay 38. I'd maybe do a Hawaii team total over instead. That's probably what I would do. They should score a bunch. They should actually score 40s against that Delaware State team with Braden Shager.
Should.
Yep.
At least. Yeah.
Braden Shager's going to have a good season. I really think so for Hawaii. He's been in that program now a couple of years, and I think he'll have a nice season at quarter. And he's been around the block, too, when you think about it, Braden Shager, because before he got to Hawaii, this guy's been in college football for quite some time. He was before that with, I believe, Syracuse for a bit. Pretty sure he was. But, yeah, he's been around the block for this in college football. So he's got lots of experience. And like I say, I think he'll have a good year at quarterback for Hawaii. So we appreciate you guys. Make sure you spread the word, too. Tell everyone you know. If you want to retweet the video link for the show and for the YouTube link to the channel itself, by all means do. Get the word out that we are back with me and CMAC Mondays, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, all season long with the College Football Hitting the Books show. All right. We always do best bets with a disclaimer this week that we do only have a couple of games to choose from, but we still do a best bet segment. CMAC, we'll start with you. Again, we're not going to hold either of us to it. This is early in the week. There's only a couple of games. There's not a lot to choose from. But as of now, CMAC, what to you on Saturday looks best bet worthy?
There's a whole lot of nothing going on here. I haven't moved on New Mexico, so I can't give that out. But that's something I've been looking at the last 2 days, and I hadn't seen 10s, and I see 10s now with them. But I took Georgia Tech. We talked about it earlier. I took them plus 12. This is a game they could lose, but I think they hang in there. I love their offense. Defense just play and just do enough to hang in this game. I think they're all – and Haynes King, take care of the football. They cover this number and they're in the game. Georgia Tech plus 12.
Keep in mind, too, if Georgia Tech's down 14 in the last 2 minutes, they're the kind of team that can with backdoor potential. Good quarterback, experienced, great run game, good receivers, excellent offensive line, very capable late in the game of getting.
And this could be different, like first week, or that like 6 weeks from now, Florida State's playing really well, but it's always so a little bit in the air here. These early games, I could see a little bit both ways, but yeah, I'll gobble the points there. I think we can get a game.
Florida State reloads. Let's not kid ourselves, no doubt. But that was not just a great defense. That was one of the best defenses Florida State's had in probably since going back to their heyday, in the 90s and early 2000s. That's how good that defense was last year. You can't expect it not to be some kind of drop-off, especially the first week of the season, the first game. There's going to be some kind of drop-off just for the short term. Will they be a great defense again, maybe a few games from now, midway through the season, later in the season? Absolutely. But right away, with what they lost, all that NFL talent lost on the defensive, especially on that D-line, it could take a little bit of time, at least for Florida State, to get themselves in their best footing on the defensive side of the football. My best bet, again, there's nothing I love for the first Saturday of the season with only a couple of games, but I'll go with that same game, but I'll go to the over, take my chances that, the weather won't be that bad in Dublin, Ireland at Aviva Stadium for this game. Total sitting at around 55.5 right now. Again, I think the offenses are the superior units right now to start. Florida State didn't lose as much on offense as they did on defense. DJU is an experienced quarterback. Georgia Tech, not a good defense last year. They are going to be better, but it might take time. And then on the flip side, Georgia Tech's strength is their offense. And Florida State's, bigger concern is what they lost on defense after last year. So put it together, I think the offenses on both sides can do enough, provided the weather's good enough, to go over that total. So over 55 at Bet Online. We'll go with that for Florida State, Georgia Tech for my best bet. That's a wrap for the first edition of Hitting the Books. We're here every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great week. Enjoy the games and good luck. This has been our season premiere edition of Hitting the Books College Football Show. Class dismissed.
Peace.